Good morning. It is Sunday, the 21st of December. This is my outlook for the week ahead. So this will probably be the last, well, it'll be the last stream before Christmas at least, and then we'll see if anything's worth paying attention to between Christmas and New Year. But generally, I plan to be just relaxing and just waiting for that higher EV setup, which we'll talk about. So in terms of the higher time frame, my plan is unchanged. I think we're going to mean revert up towards the 100k area. Provided we don't find acceptance below previous year's value high, which has been support all year. So obviously we sold into this area in March and April and bottomed here so far in November. So we're at the extreme of the developing year's value. Value is very flat and neutral, so we can assume that this is rotational for the time being. Obviously the quarterly we saw a pretty strong downtrend over the first part of the quarter, and yet now neutralized as we've formed balance over the past few weeks. The monthly also neutral, with December's value overlapping. November's value high is the logical upside target, and that lines up with the yearly VWAP, quarterly VWAP, so on and so forth. And the weekly also just neutral for now. So we're just ranging, but I don't want to be bearish at high time frame support. Right? I think mean reversion from here is what I would expect, and therefore I'm looking for longs towards 100k ish. I don't want to see us accept below 82k, however, below previous year's value high. So I've seen suggestions that we can come sweep this low. I think for me that's quite concerning if we do. I think that would potentially constitute acceptance or require acceptance below 82k. And so a sweep of this low I can entertain, but I think if we should come down as low as 74, we're probably in a lot of trouble and potentially going much lower. Previous year's VWAP and previous year's VAL would then be in play. But I really think we're going to trade up from here. I think I'm pretty convinced. So I'm not concerned about that for the time being. If we should lose 82 and things should change, then sure, we're in a bit of trouble. But for now, no such concerns. Okay, so in terms of the bigger picture plan, really nothing has changed. So ideally, I'd like to see that low swept. It would be the easiest way into a long, I think. Sweep the low and then reclaim this 8-week composite, which is from last winter, or from March and April rather, February into April. So that for me is the cleanest setup. It doesn't have to happen, but any probe into this area is probably going to be a decent spot to look to bid. Personally, I'm still spot long from here, and see no reason to change that. Still targeting this region around yearly VWAP at least, but purely from a AMT perspective, if we should find acceptance above that 94k level, then I think it's reasonable to target that composite high, which lines up with the point of control of this consolidation from early November. Okay, so that's the high time frame, pretty clear. Now, in terms of low time frame, again, not much has changed, right? So we've talked about this double distribution, price moving quickly and just barting through this sort of 88 to 91k area for the past few weeks, and it's left this gap in the profile, which we're now filling out. So, this has been kind of my thinking for some time, is that I want to see this filled out a bit before I'm confident that the range is ready to break. And we're now finding exceptions in this area and just starting to just range in this region, right? So kind of expecting more of the same, perhaps for a few days. I think for me, it's pretty obvious that we are going to trade up. Honestly, I just don't see any reason to be bearish at this level. And so, do we get an attempt to push higher, perhaps sometime over Christmas? And if we do, then maybe we're going to get caps, right? Maybe we get caps around monthly value high, previous week's VWAP. So, if we do get an attempt to push up this side of New Year, I may well look to take a short from a bit higher up. But I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure I'm going to bother trading at all. But I just think that an attempt this side of New Year is likely to fail, right? All we've seen so far, and including in this move, overnight today, is just that perps are just trying to force things and just getting nowhere. So unless we see a big change in the flows, then I would expect any move into this area to probably cap it for the time being into this imbalance, taking out these highs. Potentially a good area to look for a short, even if you're just playing, short term, back into this kind of composite low area. Other than that, right now we've got a pretty big offer just overhead, so I think we're just likely to chop it up in this region for a bit. We keep getting, low time frame flushes, and then new positioning getting flushed out, and it's just ping pong, right? I mean, it's just supply, demand, so it's not, that's ETH. I mean, it looks much the same on BTC, to be honest. Heavy supply here on Friday. Looked on Friday like we had a chance of trading up, but obviously people just standing in the way. So tested support, got a bit of a bounce. But yeah, just being capped here. It's this heavy area of supply for the time being. Little bit of manipulation going on. But yeah, for now, just low volatility chop, and I think that's likely to continue until larger players are back and able to move things around a bit more. So, just waiting on BTC. ETH is much the same. I don't think there's really much value in just reiterating the same sort of story on the majors. Super neutral. I think it could trade up to this kind of area on a bounce. So, yearly value high, which will be previous year's value high, testing this area of consolidation. Kind of makes sense. Potentially filling out that void. This quarterly VWAP, quarterly value high, also lining up in that area. So I think you're going to see pretty strong resistance around the 39 to 4K area, given the confidence that we have on these higher time frames in terms of yearly value and quarterly value. So I think for any upside, that's probably the region I would look to target. But yeah, does it come and sweep this low? Quite possibly, right? Again, could sweep the low, but for now, just neutral on ETH and just waiting. Much the same story, right? Obviously, strong downtrend, neutralized, trying to reclaim the 30-day here, but yeah, I think potentially any area around value low or lower is going to be a good spot to look to bid. Potentially as low as that, although that is about a 15% move down, so it could happen. But yeah, overall, just I don't want to be bearish at this lower extremity, even if we could end up compressing here. So not much else to add on ETH at the moment. We'll do Sol as well, just to complete the trio. Okay, so Sol actually did break down from a few weeks of balance, and we've been unable to reclaim it so far. However, we are sort of at the extreme edge of high time frame value, being this multi-month, well now actually multi-year range that we've printed since sort of March 2024. So again, it's difficult to be bearish, at this high time frame area of support, and really just anticipating a bounce at some point. But do we, for example, come and sweep this low into previous year's val? Possibly. I don't know. It was a decent long on Friday or Thursday. I can't remember which day we came into this low. Thursday. But yeah, we're still struggling at monthly resistance and previous weeks. What is that level? Weekly VWAP as well. Yeah. So monthly val is capping things at the moment. We're still in balance down on that. Can't rule out another move down. I think if we're going to trade up from here, then reclaiming that 3-week composite looks like the play. So we've got clear interactions with this level. Here, broke down, retested resistance. So we need to find exceptions above 130 if we're going to trade up from here. Otherwise, potentially looking for another probe down, something to happen, into previous year's val, for example. Could it break lower? Sure, of course it could. But yeah, really don't want to be. It's just difficult to be bearish here, even if the trend is pretty ugly. The way I think the majors are looking at it, it's more likely that we trade up. So as far as Sol is concerned, I think it makes sense for us to look to fill out this imbalance up to sort of 150. Potentially it could overshoot, but that's where I would target and potentially look for a rejection from, deviating previous month's VWAP, and just taking out all of these highs. Honestly, if I was looking at this in isolation, it looks bad because the trend is weaker. We've been unable to claim the developing month, so it's still, in terms of VWAP, I'm sure it's looking much weaker. If we look at it with reference to ETH, it's rotational, struggling around quarterly and rotational on the year. Sol, it looks significantly weaker. The monthly is still pointing down, right? We're unable to get inside the developing month's value. Quarterly also pointing down, and we're trading below the developing year. So, having flipped that into resistance so far. So if I was looking at this, on its own, it looks like the weaker of the three majors right now. That's not to say it's not going to trade up. It's just where we are in terms of location is more bearish than the locations that BTC and ETH are trading at. So above 130 is the shift you're looking for Solana. Not much else to say on it right now. I don't. It's not a long here for sure. Okay, so hype. Let's cover that as well. It looks shit, to be honest. So it's nothing new, but lots of distribution, very strong downtrend. Traded into this previous consolidation from January, and we've been unable to find acceptance above, having swept these highs into the developing month's value high. So per system, the expectation should be that we rotate towards around 20 from here. And no reason to think that won't happen for the time being. And potentially looking for a decent bounce from this composite low, at least up to the POC again. So I think, yesterday was a decent short, actually, sweeping this high into the imbalance. Monthly val, the weekly VWAP capping it. But provided we're unable to find acceptance above 25, my bias is that we continue to trade lower, potentially into this composite low around 21. Obviously, some signs that we may start to balance here for a bit. Perhaps we trade sideways as we did during this period in early December, but the trend is still very much down and there's no bullish shift yet. So potentially a good long from this area, but even in that scenario, I think I'd just be looking for a mean reversion bounce. Higher time frame, still like this idea that we come into this area of demand around below 1750 essentially, and print some kind of higher low here. So that's it for Sol, and then alts. They're mostly pretty shit. Obviously, when BTC bounces with momentum, you can get some decent moves. There are some pretty heavily manipulated coins. Syrup is one that I think actually does look quite good. So 3 weeks of balance, we broke out from that well above 30-day VWAP and 7-day, and 7 is crossed 30 bullish. Trying to reclaim previous month's value low. To me, this is by far the best looking coin in the market right now in terms of coins that aren't complete scams. I have a bag. I picked some up during this consolidation. We saw a nice compression between the 30 and 7-day VWAPs here, and then broke out, and it just looks really good. Good consolidation here. It's not been completely destroyed, unlike the vast majority of coins. We're only 15-20% below value. So a reclaim of this would be super bullish. And honestly, if we trade up to that level, having displaced this far below it, I would expect it to be reclaimed. Syrup, easily the best looking coin in the market for me. only drew down, well, I say only, but it drew down 64%. If you look at almost anything else, it's down 80-90%. So except XRP. But yeah, it's just been strong relatively. Okay, maybe not, but you get my point. If we take it from yearly high, most coins are down significantly more. Okay, so I'm also looking at this. I don't really want to go into it on this stream, but I think this potentially is gonna be a good scam. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I don't want to go into that on this stream. So have a good Christmas break. And yeah, I'll catch you when I catch you. Cheers for now.